All right, what is going on? It's one thing to hire a virtual assistant. It's another thing to know how to properly onboard a virtual assistant or an employee, a contractor, and so on. So this is kind of going to encompass all of this, okay? This is the foundation of creating a successful, I would say, partnership in not just hiring a virtual assistant, not just hiring an employee, not just hiring a contractor, but really diving deep so that when you do, you know that they are going to be an integral part of your business. Okay. So let's get into it. But before we jump right in, hi, my name is Dean Soto. I am the founder of ProSulum.com. We are a virtual staffing agency. Real people, not AI. You may have heard of virtual assistants. You're watching this video about virtual assistants. We have what's called a virtual systems architect. And a virtual systems architect are very similar to a virtual assistant. However, you give a task to a virtual assistant or an in-house employee or a contractor, and they will ask you a question and back and forth, and you have to babysit and you'll have to clarify, and you are back at square one when you have the next task and the next task and the next task. Okay. So you always get sucked back into being mama bear or papa bear. However, with a virtual systems architect, very similar to a virtual assistant. However, when you give them a task, what they do is they say, okay, boss, sounds great. They document what you showed them. So you send them that 5-minute video, that 10-minute video. They document step by step with pictures, with visuals, a standard operating procedure. Boom, 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 boom. This is how you do XYZ, da, 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 da. And then they do the task. And then you give them the next task. And they do the exact same. And the next. 30 tasks later, you have 30 different documented processes that you never, ever have to do again. You can give it to the next employee, you can give it to the next contractor, and you have this standard operating procedure that everyone uses in your business, so they all know how to do all of the things that are currently making you money, and you can go and do whatever it is that you love to do. So if that sounds exciting, if that sounds good, go check out ProSulum.com, ProSulum.com. And we have a webinar that you can always attend, www.prosulum.com, ProSulum.com/webinar. And if you want to schedule a call with us, just go to the same place, www.prosulum, ProSulum.com/schedule. All right, so let's get into this. All right, most people fail with a virtual assistant because they're missing clear processes. They have the wrong mindset. They have no systems. And I've harped on this before. You go check the previous video. It's, hey, I need you to go and run my Twitter account. I need you to go, or x.com account now. I need you to go run my Facebook account. And no matter how good that virtual assistant is, no matter how good that employee is, they can't read your mind. They will ask you a question to clarify. You'll give them an answer, and then they'll ask another question. Especially if they are a good virtual assistant or employee, they're going to ask as many questions as possible because they don't want to fail. But then you're going to think, this guy is an idiot. I'm able to do this. Why can they not do it? And I have numerous examples of this happening, and it's one of the killers when it comes to this whole thing. In the last video, I shared that one of my friends who I've taken my car to go get detailed to him for years and years and years now. He just the turnover of his receptionists. They come in, they start the job, they love it, and then 3 months later they hate it and they quit. They come in, they start the job, and then 3 months later they quit. Why? Because they start the job, He sees how good they are because they are good. He has them do a ton of different things, giving no clear process, no clear checklist or anything like that. They do it. He says, no, that's not how you do it. Let me show you how to do it. And then it's back and forth. And then he makes them feel dumb because he feels like they're dumb. And so then they quit. You have to have clear processes. It's people plus process plus product, and that equals success. Thank you, Marcus Lemonis from The Prophet. The right systems make or break your VA successes. You have to be in the mindset that I want to work on my business and not in it. If your business depends on you, you don't own a business. You have a job, and it's the worst job in the world because you're at all hours of the day on call. It sucks because you're working not just 40 hours, you're working 60, 70, 80 plus hours. And the risk of you not doing that is far greater than if you were at a 40-hour job where you can shut off your brain on the weekends. This is why you need to document everything and create repeatable systems. Your VA, your virtual assistant, or your virtual systems architect from ProSulum.com should clone you, not just help you. They should be an extension of you. And it's these systems that create freedom and not dependency, okay? Now, you have to understand that when you're bringing on a virtual systems architect or a virtual assistant or an employee or a contractor, you have to already know what is running your business, what processes, what systems are actually truly running your business, and which ones are the most effective. There's efficiency, which efficiency is optimizing your existing processes. It's getting from point A to point B. But effectiveness is effectiveness is really taking the most crucial parts of that process and doing only those things. Okay. So for effectiveness, I mean, you could have a process that is efficient. It goes from you to Zapier to make.com to your virtual systems architect or virtual assistant, then back to you, and then back to the virtual assistant. And so, but if really all that needed to be done was the tasks go from you to your virtual assistant, and then that's it, that is effective. It's still, it can be efficient if you have all of these different things working together and moving all over the place. But the second something breaks in that chain, you're screwed. Okay. So you need to measure results and not just activity. And you need to start with clear outcomes for your virtual assistant. Okay. This is key. And in fact, one of the best books that you could ever read on business called Rework by Jason Fried and David Hannemeyer Hansen. They talk about the core of your business. You can't have a hot dog stand without a hot dog. Okay. So rather than focusing on all these different things with your virtual assistant, focus on one thing that you're going to onboard them for. Get that one thing solidly real and done, and let them either save you a ton of time or make a lot of money for you. You can't have a hot dog stand without a hot dog. You can have all these condiments, you have the best buns in the world, the best marketing, whatever, but if someone's coming to you for a hot dog and you don't even have a hot dog in those buns, when you give it to them, they're going to be like, what the hell is this? It's far better for you to have a hot dog with no condiments. It's just a plain hot dog with bun than it is to have all these condiments and all these different things and no hot dog. Okay. The rule of thumb in every video that I do and that you're listening to is that you need to document before you delegate. With AI now, things are so much easier to document. You really have no excuse. Now, if you want visuals, if you want things like that, then yeah, it's still not up to par. I've tried different softwares. It doesn't work nearly as well as a virtual systems architect. But you need to start documenting. Okay, systems run the business and people run the systems. From the book Work the System by Sam Carpenter. Okay. You have to, even if it's just one thing, have to have it documented first before bringing that virtual assistant on. Okay. Unless they're a virtual systems architect and they'll do it for you and they'll do the task. Okay. But no documentation, no delegation. Okay. Document, delegate, refine, and repeat. Okay. This is where, when you have everything documented, then you could start thinking partnership. Even if it's one thing that that you have documented, it's your lead generation, like maybe cold emailing or something like that. Now, you don't have to spend hours training. You can say, hey, this is the cold email process that we have. I want you to go through this. I want you to try to do this with 10 people, and then we're going to measure the results. That is a partnership, not where you're sitting there training for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, hoping they caught everything you were going to say. You have it recorded. You have a 4-hour recording of all that training. And now when they try to do it, they have to go through the entire 4 hours to see, oh yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, I do that there. No, that's not a partnership. That's a freaking nightmare. Okay. Leaders don't create followers. They create more leaders. And when you have documented processes, you're creating leaders who can then give those processes to somebody else in the future very easily and do exactly what you're doing for them. You need to see these guys, whether it's an employee, whether it's a contractor, virtual assistant, virtual systems architect, they are strategic partners and not just task doers. You have to set them up to win, not just to work, and invest in their growth. And that's through documented processes. Right person, right seat. The only way you're going to know if you have the right person and the right seat in the right seat is through documented systems. Okay. You can't know if you have the right seat or not if you don't have a proven system. I can't tell you how many people who have no cold email lead generation, no social media, none of that. And they say, I want to get a virtual system architect to do my social media for me. And we say, okay, cool. So you have a process that's working right now? No, I just want somebody. Can you get me somebody who already knows how to do this type of stuff and they can just do it for me? And we say typically no. Because you don't even know if that seat is right and if it's going to work for your business. So if you don't know if the seat is right, how are you going to know if you're going to have the right person? Because there are times where you have the right seat. You know something works. You've done the task. You know this thing works. You put this person in it, and they're just not the right person for the job. But you know this seat works, and you get the right person. Boom. Okay. You have to define the seat ahead of time. Okay. The only way to do that is to know that something works, document what actually works, what the KPIs should be, and then you can know whether or not the person is right for that fit. All right, so let's get into some actionable steps. Let's keep this on a weekly basis. So week 1, okay, you need to set the foundation. Okay. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to gather wood, divide the work, give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. So you have to have a strong vision for what you're doing in the first place. Okay. You have to have that vision. If you're going to hire somebody for a specific job, you have to give them the vision of you are doing this for our cold email campaign, and this is the fuel for our business. Okay, you are the linchpin for whether this business does well or not. The reason why we do cold emails is because there are thousands and thousands of people out there that have no clue that we could solve their problems. They have these problems, and you list them all out, and we solve them by doing XYZ. Okay. And so you need to know what problem you're solving so that you can then build your documentation around that problem, so that when you bring on this person, they have the vision, they have the documented process, and they are loving being a part of something bigger than just doing a task. Okay. Then we have 2 to 3 weeks of process training. Okay. I do 5-minute videos. And I've explained in the past that I did that because I was constrained by Jing.com, Jing. When we first started this business, we used Jing, Jing, and you could only do 5-minute videos. So everything that I had to do in 5 minutes. And I actually saw that was a beautiful thing because it constrained. I had to get down to the nitty-gritty of what I was training. Then my virtual systems architect would document it, and then they would do it. So during the process, and it doesn't have to be 2 to 3 weeks. You can do this if it's one thing that you want them to do. You can do it very quickly. Okay. Now, our virtual systems architects automatically know how to document these things. Okay. You might have to document them yourself. You might have the virtual assistant document them, but you're going to have a process for them to document it in the first place. Otherwise, it's going to be all over the place, right? I would suggest record yourself completing the task that you want. And then either you document it or you have somebody else document it. And then you review and refine, and then you can hand it off to your virtual systems architect or your VA or your employee or whatever, and watch them do it. Okay. Then you verify the results. So this is their onboarding. Okay. Verify the results. If they do well, great. If they don't, well, you move on to somebody else. This is what we do in ProSulum. So when we are actually hiring and recruiting people into ProSulum for our clients, we do this. So we already give them the vision ahead of time. So they know why we're doing all this in the first place. We actually test them. We have like a 5-tier, 6-tier hiring process where they have to do things like this ahead of time. So we know with a high level of certainty whether they are going to be the right person for the right seat. And then ultimately, we do what we call nesting, where they actually do real world stuff before we even give them to a client. So we see how they work independently. We see how they do things on an independent basis. And so it's when you have somebody who can work independent, who can document processes, can understand the seat that they're in, can understand the vision, you create something very powerful. The ability to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. And this is from Jason Fried. Okay, so when you are able to document and not just give this task by having them read your mind, you are constraining everything to a very simple process. And then you're teaching them to be independent with that process. Okay. You can have them, like with us, we do our nesting during the whole entire recruiting phase. We're testing them on small little tasks and then give them more and more and more. So we know, oh my gosh, this person's awesome. Or they're not going to meet the vision. And this allows you to not micromanage, and you let them solve problems, and you let them see where the process breaks down, and let them communicate that so that you can improve the process as time goes on. So then, typically you want to have, when you're first starting out, you want to have daily check-ins, or even like you can be every 2 days, weekly planning sessions, monthly strategic reviews, things like that. Consistency is more important than frequency. Now, I'm of the mindset that meetings are toxic generally. Okay, so you don't want to have so many meetings that it's just cutting into a lot of productivity. You want to have meetings, or you want to send voice notes and things like that that are necessary. Okay, and then ultimately you need to measure. You need to measure things. What's their success? We're sending cold emails by yourself. You were getting a, let's say, 30% rate, a 10% reply rate, and a 2% meeting book rate. They are getting, let's say, a 20% open rate, a 10% reply rate, and a 2% book rate. They're not getting as high of an open rate, so maybe the subject lines that they are using aren't as good. You might have had a process for creating them. Now there's something in the process that's showing you that they're not as good as yours. Okay, why? But now you know, because you've allowed the process to happen, and you can go and fix it and go see what's actually going on, right? And you can create scorecards, and you can focus on outcomes and not just hours worked. Okay. So, a couple fatal mistakes when you're onboarding. Okay. No clear expectations. If you are vague in your instructions, if it's like, hey, you're going to run my social media account, can you just post on Twitter or on X, whatever it is? Vague. You're going to get vague results. If you skip the documentation, you're building on sand. It might work, but ultimately, you are building on sand, and you're not building something that's scalable. And that will lead you to micromanage, which kills initiative and creates dependency on you. And you'll never be able to create an asset out of your business. You're going to constantly get sucked back in. But when you have things documented, you can have feedback loops that are positive and improve. Okay. You rather than problems compounding, you can compound improvement in your processes. The ultimate thing is treating people like they're employees and not partners. Now, you could have people who are employees and they just cannot get into the partnership mindset, but you get out of that by seeing how they work with the processes you've created. Okay. Foundation. Build your foundation. Start letting them be independent, and give them full autonomy at some point in time with boundaries. You create a self-improving system that gets better over time. Okay. But you have to have documented processes, have to have documented systems. Okay. Each phase builds on the previous, creating compounding results. Okay. And so if you follow all of this, you will scale faster, you will double your profits over time, and you will reduce your workload by 80%. I was actually on a client call today, and we were talking, and he said, dude, I want to be like you. He runs a very, very, very successful construction company, and oh, man, does really, really well. And they do like freeways, they do big, huge parking structures and things like that. And he said, my goal is to be like you. And he's almost there, where he can leave, he can be out of the business, come in the business when he wants to, out of the business, come into the business when he wants to. That is the goal. Systems plus outsourcing equals freedom. So if that sounds good to you, you can do it yourself with a virtual assistant, or an employee or a contractor that you hire, or you can just have it done, ready for you. Hop on, let's go. They document, for you, a virtual systems architect from ProSulum.com. And if that sounds good, go to www.prosulum.com/schedule, hop on a call. If you're not quite ready for a call yet, check out our webinar, www.prosulum.com/webinar. I'd love to see you there. So if you are bringing on a virtual assistant, remember, systems plus outsourcing equals freedom. Documented systems, documented processes. Do that, and you will have an immense amount of freedom with your virtual assistant. So my name is Dean Soto, prosulum.com. I will see you in the next video.